Rock on Rockies fans. Today on the Locked on Rockies podcast, the line has been set from our friends at BetOnline. 68.5 wins for the Rockies. Over or under?
You are Locked on Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked on Rockies podcast for today, the 21st day of March. This is the start of 5 podcasts a week, again from the Locked on Rockies podcast. So you can be expecting to hear this guy talking about the Rockies 5 days a week, basically until Christmas. We got lots to talk about today. The big theme of the pod today is going to be the over-under on 68.5 wins. We're going to talk about, is that a realistic number for the Rockies? Are the Rockies being slept on maybe a little bit? How the Rockies got there, because that line actually dropped over the weekend. Who am I? You might be asking if this is your first time tuning in. Well, I'm Paul Holden. I'm your Rockies fan extraordinaire. Been covering the Rockies for the Locked on Rockies podcast for almost a year now. Following them my entire life, and I'm also helping out on the airwaves here, the radio airwaves, that is, in Seattle. You can find a lot more of my work at paulfholden.com if you need more proof that I am a real working man. Like I said, today we are talking about the over-under on that win total for the Colorado Rockies, and I also want to talk a little bit about the Kris Bryant press conference a little bit as well. Devin's in the live chat. We're streaming live on YouTube right now. Devin, hey, what's up, Paul? Go Rockies. Go Rockies indeed. You can catch us streaming all the time. We will be live on YouTube recording each and every podcast this season. So if you follow and subscribe to the YouTube channel, you'll know when we go live to record the podcast. But hey, if you don't want to catch it live, that's a-okay. The video on demand is going to be up on not only YouTube, but on your favorite streaming service. Today's episode of the Locked on Rockies podcast is brought to you by BetOnline, and that really is helpful because BetOnline has set the line for our first topic today. Our big topic, I should say, of the day, because it's gonna kind of stem off into some other things here as well. Because when the team line of total wins is set, that is a description of your team. Currently at BetOnline, the Rockies futures bet is 68.5 wins for total wins. You can take the you can take the over at minus 125 or the under at minus 105. Here's the deal, folks. That's a low number. If I'm a betting man, if I'm someone that understands betting, which I am, my betting record hasn't always proven that, I'm taking that over all day, folks. To think the Rockies are only a 68.5 win team is actually kind of a product of a lot of things. The fact that the Rockies are really slept on in terms of the national media and the perception. I get it. And I'm critical too. The Rockies are a confusing team. This Rockies team doesn't make any sense to the outside world. But let's be real. Has the outside national presence really ever paid attention to the Colorado Rockies? 68.5 wins. I mean, let's look at some teams that are projected with higher win totals. The Reds, the Guardians, the Tigers, the Royals, the Angels, the Marlins, I was going to say the Twins, but the Twins did a lot of stuff. The A's, the only team that I've seen so far scrolling down with an under, with a lower win total, a lower win line for the Rockies is the Pirates at 65.5. Nope. Still going. The Rangers are at 74.5. The Nationals 71.5. I don't know how the A's and the Nationals can sit and the Reds can sit at these over 70 wins just because they don't play in the same division. I don't get that. The Rockies are a better team right now with their roster than the Reds, than the Guardians, than the A's, than the Nationals, and probably even the Marlins. To sit here, the biggest reason that line is set there is because the Rockies have to play in a dominant NL West. But the other thing you have to remember is the Rockies are a really good team at home, and a team that's really, really going to is going to have more pop in the offense than a lot of people might think. I just think, and I think above all, people don't understand how good the beginning of this rotation is. German Marquez was arguably the best pitcher in baseball for a chunk of time last year. And Antonio Senzatella is a great pitcher. Austin Gomber showed an elite potential. I mean, this is a team that isn't sitting in the same situations. This is a team that if you actually had that in a different division, you could argue would maybe flirt with a wild card, especially in expanded playoffs. And then especially when you look at where the team finished last year, a historically bad team on the road, still beat out the Padres at the end of the year to knock them out of the playoffs. They didn't finish in the same record, but they were close enough. The Rockies played a huge role in the Padres not making the postseason last year. And the Rockies did take a step back, but it's crazy to me that the win total went down for the Rockies on this line after signing Kris Bryant. When I looked at this last week before the Kris Bryant signing, the Rockies were at 69.5. I mean, I know that's only one game, but that's interesting to me. Kris Bryant is going to provide a factor for this offense. I mean, we can't sit here and say that there isn't going to be somewhat of the reproduction of Trevor Story with Kris Bryant in the lineup. Kris Bryant is a good hitter and is someone that the Rockies were really interested in, and is someone that is a really good baseball player. The Rockies are in a much better spot than a 68.5 win total. And I'm not sitting here to say buy high on the Rockies. I'm taking the over, but I'm saying the ceiling for the Rockies is like a 73 to 75 wins. That's kind of more where I'm at. It would be a trickier situation for me if the line was set at, say, 73.5, 74.5. That's when you're starting to ask yourself, man, the Rockies got to play a ton of games in the division. They got that long stretch against LA at the end of the year this year. That's when you start asking yourself the question of, is this team really going to hit this line? 68.5 on the over-under for the win total for the Rockies. I'm taking the over all day on that. And again, not to say that I'm overconfident in the Rockies. I'm just more confident that this isn't a team that's close to 100 losses. This is a team that's in a better situation than that because they don't tear everything down completely. They don't break everything down. They're not taking the Orioles approach. They're not taking these other teams that sell like they could have. If the Rockies truly were going to be a 68.5 win team, they would have had to sell more. And losing John Gray and Trevor Story does impact the Rockies, but you buffer that a little bit by the fact that the Rockies were active in this offseason. It's not enough to go and say that the Rockies are competitors within the division. That's a stretch. But to sit there and just say that the Rockies can't recreate last year with the roster that they have now, I think that's a bit of a stretch. I think the Rockies do take a step back then from last year, but I still don't think it's going to be massive. I mean, it all depends on really how the Rockies rotation handles John Gray not being a part of it, and Kris Bryant, what he does for the Rockies in his first season with the club. I got a couple of live chat comments here as well. I want to talk about that in just a second. But first, I got to tell you about our friends at BetOnline. It's that time of the year again, college basketball. I mean, March Madness, boy, oh boy, has it been a bunch of fun. It's finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, betonline.net is the number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Plus, there's lots of MLB futures action going on right now if you want to get in on some stuff for, betting on the Rockies, betting on this over-under win total like we've been talking about so far today. That's all going down at BetOnline. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action at BetOnline. BetOnline, where the game starts. Let's go dive in here a little bit to our chat, our live chat here. You can be joining us on YouTube if you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hold on. Drink break. Stephen Cross says, I think I'm going the over. I could see us winning close to 80 wins this season. I love the Bryant signing. I think it's going to help our younger guys grow and develop. 80 wins is more than I'm confident in saying. However, it's not outside the realm of possibility when you look at the fact that the Rockies have just interesting pieces. The pieces have to work together and they have to work in unison. Too many times we've seen the Rockies kind of go, man, here's our really great pitching, but the offense isn't helping. Here's the offense, the pitching isn't helping. If the Rockies are able to close out ball games this year, if the bullpen is actually able to shut the door, if the Rockies don't lose a ton of games in the 6th, 7th, 8th inning like we saw last year, if things go really well, 80 wins is a possibility. I mean, Kris Bryant is an MVP. Kris Bryant is an elite level baseball player. He hasn't been the same caliber as we've seen maybe in the past couple of years, but he's made an impact on every single roster. Kris Bryant is going to make an impact, and Kris Bryant is going to be an interesting for these young players. A big name that was competing with the Rockies, especially with the Rockies stars at that time, coming in now into the organization, saying he wants to be here and saying this is a winning team. He said that himself. He doesn't think that this is a losing team. I think there's some, I'm a new player, I'm a new star guy. I need to kind of butter up the crowd a little bit in there too, but there is confidence there. You don't commit this much of your life just to say, I want a career rebound in Coors Field. There has to be more. And the fact that the Rockies even said to Trevor Story, hey, let's, we got Bryant, let's make a deal. That's a good sign too, to at least signal that the Rockies were willing to spend more money and could actually be shifting a mindset in the front office. We have to see if that's the case. We have to see what this Kris Bryant signing actually pans out. But the Kris Bryant signing is way more interesting, and it's not just wacky, crazy Rockies like everyone thinks. It's the Rockies thinking that, that they are closer than they are, and instead of having to wait forever, they went and made a splash, and they're trying to beef up the offense a little bit around this pitching staff. Now, again, you can talk about, well, we had that. You could have done that with the roster in the past. You could have kept the players that you already had. Yes, but again, that's a conversation I'm sure we'll have again and probably this week. But right now, Kris Bryant is the guy for the Rockies, and Kris Bryant is going to help this team hit the over on 68.5 wins. I don't know if I'm quite ready to say 80 wins like Steven is in the chat, but you can't sit there and ignore that if the stars align, if the Rockies perform as well as they did at home last year, with just being even remotely a little bit better on the road than last year, the team would improve. The team would be closer. The Rockies are a team that's going to be eyeballing that expanded playoff spot if everything goes right. And people might be sitting here surprised to hear that, but the Rockies have good starting pitching. They potentially are getting they have some new look guys with some guys that are ready to break out. There's a little bit more to the Rockies than just disorganization. And I'm someone who's been very critical of the Rockies and their disorganization, as I should be, and as I will continue to do so. But going out and spending this money on a top tier free agent, Kris Bryant really could have gone anywhere that he wanted. I mean, if you think about it, obviously not every team has a fit for him, and that's not how it really works. But he was one of the biggest names in free agency this offseason. And the Rockies went out and got him. And I am encouraged by the fact that they approached Trevor Story after. I knew it wasn't going to happen, but it at least put the mind in Trevor Story, the thought there that said, hey, one last chance to see what to bring it back. But I'm glad I honestly think now with Trevor Story signing and the Gray stuff, we have to just embrace this new era of Rockies baseball. Don't ignore, forget, don't neglect how the Rockies got in this position. But the Rockies actually made free agent moves this year. The Rockies got a big name and a big bat. That is going to be some potential. And Steven, if we hit that 80 wins, you called it first. We're going back to your call. Devin in the live chat says, I think the line is an easy over. The team won 74 games last season, and that was happening while Story was having a down year. Yeah, losing Gray sucks, but I think Cole could be an okay replacement. Yeah, I mean, the Rockies went out and signed some major league arms. There's someone that maybe can give you that John Gray level production. Sure, it shouldn't be too you hope it's not too hard to get another John Gray. But my big thing with the John Gray thing is you didn't need to. You could have just offered John Gray the same deal that Texas did, and he probably would have taken it and stayed in Denver. He just was caught up in a whole mess of that weird transition. And then we hear, we were reading and we talked about last week that Dick Monfort might have been more in control than I thought last year. I thought it was definitely Bill Schmidt running the show, but Dick Monfort could have been more involved. And so that's going to be interesting. So yeah, that's the thing. Historically bad for most of the season on the road. Honestly, just a historically bad team on the road. The Colorado Rockies were a 74-win team last year. And that was because of playing at home. But that's also, they played in their division and they got smoked by the Dodgers and the Giants at home and really throughout most of the season. But they still were able to win 74 wins. The Rockies were great against the NL East last year, where the World Series champions came from. I can't sit here and lie and say that the Rockies are in a worse shape than some of these other teams. I mean, there is a chance if the chips fall correctly, if this pitching staff pitches as well as it can, and these moves in the bullpen work out, and the Rockies get even down year Trevor Story level performance from Kris Bryant in his first year, and decent enough from Jose Iglesias, the Rockies should be able to win 74 games again. And if things go even better, and people get the Coors Field bounce back, and the Rockies are able to benefit from this new identity that they have, closing the door on that team, on the competitive window of that team, trying to open up this other one. If it all goes well and the Rockies are flirting with a wild card spot, it's going to take everything going right for the Rockies. It's going to take Kris Bryant being I don't know if it's not MVP, but Kris Bryant needs to be the offensive leader on the team. CJ Cron and Elias Diaz need to hit like they did last year. And the pitching staff needs to be as good as they were as starters last year, but the bullpen needs to be able to shut the door. And there's a possibility there. We will see. The Rockies did go out and get someone, Colome. That I'm hoping. I don't know. I don't think I was getting it right. I have a buddy that works for the Rays, and I was saying it wrong. But getting that Colome, which is probably going to be their closer. But you have other options. We saw some of these young arms within the Rockies organization really did well at the end of last year. So at the end of the day, folks, if you are looking at this win total, and if you're sitting there and saying, I'm going to take the under on a 68.5 win line for the Rockies, I that's a bad bet, folks. I think the Rockies are too good of a team at home. I think the Rockies will be interesting with Kris Bryant as part of their line. Again, this isn't a Rockies team that no longer that was at the beginning of last week. This is a Rockies team that does have star power because of Kris Bryant. If Charlie Blackmon, oh boy, we're going to talk more about this week. Charlie Blackmon still being the right fielder, that is an issue. I love Charlie Blackmon, but what are we doing? That's the Rockies have to figure out this outfield. I know that, and that's something for honestly another podcast, because I want to dive into something. But there are other things of the Rockies that do need to be figured out. I know there's still stuff. That outfield is still crowded. That outfield is still overpopulated. And if you're gonna rely on Charlie Blackmon playing in right field, how much is that going to cost you in terms of defensive production? When instead you could just have Chuck focus on the best part of his game, which is the offense, and then use all these outfielders. There is not enough room on this lineup for this team for Charlie Blackmon, Kris Bryant, Jonathan Daza, Garrett Hampson, Sam Hilliard, Connor Joe, and Raimel Tapia. That's far too many options. There needs to be a trade of some sort. The Rockies need to figure that out. That there is some other pieces that really are the Rockies, that they are confusing. I'm not saying that the Rockies have completely atoned for everything. I'm not saying I'm completely confident in every direction going forward for the Rockies. I'm just not going to sit here and be blindsided and people. I'm not going to be overwhelmed by a national the bigger picture narrative of the Rockies are a 68.5 win team. That's not what my perception of the Rockies. My perception of the Rockies is if things go really well, they're a 73 to 75 win team. If things go perfect, they're an 80 win team. I'm not even, and that's below 500 ball we're talking here still. But I think there's a massive difference in being a 68.5 win team and a 75 win team. And especially if the Rockies if the Rockies improve this year, it's not we made the right moves. We did everything right. We made the right trades and we shouldn't have had all that money. That's not the point. The point is the Rockies are buying in and getting better. Doesn't necessarily mean that it'll pan out exactly the way, but it's just if the Rockies get better this year, then it is something that you can say the Rockies moved in the right direction in some ways. Every single time you're going to go down that type of path of the Rockies get better, they're supporting the Rockies and all this stuff, it's going to keep branching off. Rockies fandom is honestly complicated, and I think it has been especially complicated over the past few years. But I'm not going to be overconfident in a team when they don't deserve overconfidence, but I'm not going to sell them short either. This team without Kris Bryant, I would say, is closer to 68.5 wins. This team without all the signings they made is closer to 68.5 wins. But the Rockies did do something. Might not have been the moves we wanted, might not have been the moves we wanted, but there are ball players that make this a more interesting club than is perceived. And well, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And it was kind of evident in Kris Bryant's press conference as well. But before we do, I got to tell you about our friends at Built Bar. Look, if you want to change up your snacking habits, if you are looking to ditch the candy bar, if you're looking for a protein bar that's going to give you a delicious taste and not that chemically, chalky, waxy, weird protein taste that you know what I'm talking about. Well, Built Bar is the bar for you. Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, that's 100% real chocolate. And you're sitting here like, Paul, you're trying to tell me about a healthy protein bar that's covered in real chocolate? Well, yeah, they're low calorie, high protein. And you can see the macro charts for yourself at built.com. And you're going to be blown away because most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. There's so many delicious flavors in, and you can go check out all the delicious flavors and all the other great options available for your snacking needs at built.com, including the first ever protein infused marshmallow, the Built Bar Puffs. You can check those out and all the delicious flavors at built.com. And when you head to built.com to lock in your order, you can use the promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off that order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your order at built.com. So I wanted to talk about the Kris Bryant press conference a little bit. I should have gotten some audio clips for us. Maybe we'll dive in. We're going to keep talking about this. I mean, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of commitment, and it's something that you can't sit there and ignore what Kris Bryant was thinking when he came to the Rockies. Obviously, he most likely the Rockies probably gave him the best deal. Sorry, need to take another water break here real quick. Anyway, Kris Bryant he was just, and this is honestly a great headline here from Kenneth Weber over on Purple Row. Kris Bryant is the bridge to better days ahead. It is that way. It was a sign. It wasn't the free agent that we wanted necessarily in terms of Rockies fans because of Trevor Story and with the Nolan deal. But the Rockies did go out and make this deal like we've talked about on this episode. And hearing his commitment to the team and hearing the stuff that he had to say, I mean, that's important. I think it's really, really important. Let's take this quote. I've come from teams in Chicago, bringing a World Series there and knowing what it takes. And we brought veterans in at that time, and I want to be that veteran presence for the guys here. Hopefully they can lean on me for advice in big games, and I'm looking forward to a full 7 years here. I see this as me being here for 7 years and a lot of growth and opportunity to help the team get there and win the World Series. We'll get there. We'll get to the World Series one day. And if Kris Bryant is leading us there, great. But this is a move to say, hey, the Rockies weren't going to be swimming around without their veteran, and they had Charlie Blackmon there, but bringing in someone, a champion, an MVP, that draws attention from the players in the locker room. And it does help the Rockies get someone that's had the big experience, because if you look about it, the Rockies' main playoff appearance people, most of them are gone. Charlie Blackmon and a couple of arms are really the only ones left. Ryan McMahon was there, but he wasn't necessarily contributing every day. Kris Bryant chose to be a Colorado Rocky. Yes, there was a lot of money. Yes, there was a commitment from the team. But he also, they were linked the whole time. There were other teams that could have been in on Kris Bryant. There were other teams. He could have played, it took less money to go somewhere, sure. But bringing in that experience, bringing in that leadership is valuable to me. Will it pay off completely? I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot more than just Kris Bryant being a good, solid veteran and being good for the Rockies to get to the next level, to get to the playoffs again. But it is a step in the right direction, like we've kind of seen. As much as we have to, we can say it's a step in the right direction because it is. I'm not ignoring the fact that it's a step. It's a step in a different direction on a different path, like we talked about, because the door is closed on arguably one of the I would say a fan favorite Rockies team, and it will be for a long time. And the sting won't go away for a lot of Rockies fans, and I understand that. Nolan Arenado, DJ LeMahieu, Trevor Story, John Gray were all incredible Rockies and brought a ton of people a passion into reigniting a passion of Rockies baseball that hadn't been seen since October. Losing all of those players when you had them is hard, and it sucks. Would I want all those players on the Rockies still right now? Yes. Over the Kris Bryant deal? Yes. However, we can't sit and only dwell and only just sit and focus on the fact that the Rockies did have this when they are trying to move in a different direction. And Kris Bryant is the first step. And Kris Bryant and Jose Iglesias and Cole and Colome and an offseason of actual major league signings was the first step in a different direction. Where will it lead? Will it lead to a World Series? I don't know. But it's refreshing to know that a big name free agent talked to the Colorado Rockies and other teams in the offseason and decided to play for the Rockies. After how they've treated big name players for the past 3 years, everything that's been talked about in the past of the Rockies, it is a good sign. It has to pan out. They have to build with Kris Bryant. They have to continue this momentum. The Rockies have to continue to improve, continue to get better, continue to be active, continue to be, if they want to be a draft and develop team, get better down there, get a better farm system. The Rockies need to continue the momentum that has started with this Kris Bryant deal, or else you're not going to be able to rebuild this team the way you want to and rebuild the passion in Rockies baseball. It's making this deal and hearing Kris Bryant does make you feel a little bit better as a Rockies fan. It makes me feel better. It makes me more confident in the Rockies going forward. It makes me look at 68.5 win total lines and scoff a little bit. Do I think the Rockies are now a playoff contender? Do I think the Rockies are immediately on the road to playoff contention? I don't think so. And I don't, but they have potential and they have good players. And if things go well and if they play up to their potential, extended playoffs you could flirt with it. Devin in the chat, if the playoffs expanded last season, the 83 win Reds would have made the playoffs. We can definitely hit 83 wins with this current squad. I can't sit here with the abundance of caution and say I'm ready to say this is an 80 win team, an 83 plus win team. But I will sit here and say that if Brendan Rodgers, Ryan McMahon, CJ Cron, Elias Diaz, and Kris Bryant with and Charlie Blackmon swing it, and we get production that we saw from the starters that we did last year, mixed with this somewhat revamped bullpen, new looked closer, and all that stuff, it could happen. I'm not overly confident that it will. But hey, the Giants, everyone slept on the Giants last year, and they used a bunch of veteran guys, and they had a bunch of veteran people to bring it in, and look what happened. I don't think the Rockies are in the same position as the Giants, but again, it's baseball. It's a new look team. It's a new season. It's a new opportunity, and Kris Bryant does represent the next look Rockies. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Hey, before we go, I want to tell you that today at 3 o'clock Eastern time, so that'll give you a couple of hours here still after this posts and things, the NHL trade deadline show on the Locked On for a bunch of the Locked On NHL hosts are going to be hopping on, talking about the deadline. The Avalanche are in the midst of all this stuff. Sakic's going to be meeting with the media, so you are not going to want to miss all the trade deadline coverage of the NHL with the Locked On network today. So make sure that you're following Locked On Avalanche, and make sure you're following Locked On Broncos and Nuggets, of course, too, for all your Colorado sports. But they will be doing a bunch of trade deadline stuff today, so go check them out. Also, go check out Lock On MLB Prospects and the Locked On MLB podcast for more baseball action. We're back in action 5 days a week here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at LO Rockies. Subscribe to that YouTube channel, and we'd love if you rate and subscribe on your favorite streaming service. You all helped Locked On Rockies get into the top 100 on the Apple charts this past last time I checked, and I thank you for that. Rocky season, it's here. Let's have a ton of fun. Folks, until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies.